Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. I'm Sally Ganga from College Coach. I'm really excited about the show today. For the second segment, I'll be joined by my colleague Molly O'Connor to discuss whether and why you might hire a college coach. And for the last segment, my finance colleague Jennifer Wilcox will be addressing the simplification of the FAFSA, or the federal financial aid form. Basically, is it really a simplification? Hopefully so. But for this first segment, those of you who are watching on video will see Rachel Robertson on the screen. She's the Vice President of Learning and Development here at College Coach's parent company, Bright Horizons. So welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Sally.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. And so you're really here to talk about pathways to careers in early childhood education, which I think is great. I mean, actually, I'll just tell you a fun fact. My mom worked in early childhood education until she went to law school when we were like, I don't know, I think I was 12 or something when she started, or 11. So it was tough. And I can promise you that she always missed being in early childhood education. Not as many hugs in the law. I mean, just, not as many hugs. So, but anyway, let's back up. So let's start with what kind of pathways people might choose. I mean, is there a particular kind of, just to start with, education that might be needed?
Yeah, I mean, in the United States, of course, there's differences in every state, but the commonality that you find in a lot of states is an entry level is what we call a child development associate. And that is a portable credential throughout the country that's often is seen as the entry level. Sometimes it helps a person get to the teacher level. And it is a competency-based program. So you can take classes. You sometimes can take them at a online professional education organization, and a lot of community colleges or even some four-year universities have them. I always recommend, if someone's going to take those classes somewhere, that they really do look for a college course level that come with either credits or continuing education units, so that CDA credential is a pathway, like we're talking about today, to AA or BA, so you can use those college courses or those credits for something else. So you go through that CDA program, and because it's competency based, there's an assessment, and then there's an observation and a portfolio, which another reason it's so great. Not only does it get you into the field, but it gives you a lot of practice and skill building in being a student, especially for people that have taken a break from being a student. So get a lot of support and coaching and mentoring about how to be a student successfully, and then you get your credential, and that's a great start to wherever you want to go in the field of early childhood.
Absolutely. Now, what do you mean by a portfolio? I mean, let's dig into that.
So one of the nice things about the credential, the CDA, and I see a lot of people doing this, like if your mom did the opposite, started in law and then wanted to get into early childhood, I see a lot of people going to the CDA as a way to get the practical knowledge plus skills that they need for the everyday learning. And the CDA requires coursework, but it also requires work in the classroom and proof of that work, that you're successfully applying what you learn in those courses, and you develop a portfolio of evidence that you've implemented what you're learning in the classes in the classroom. So maybe you're going to show a project you've done with the children, or you have to write competency statements and show that what I learned here, I understand, and here's how I'm applying it. So that's also good practice, right? Of showing the evidence of your work and presenting that as proof that you've not only just learned something, but that you're able to translate that learning into the work you do.
So I think probably the most common pathway is not a lot of early childhood, although I'm sure there are some people, but I can kind of imagine like a parent who has been out of the workforce for a while to parent their younger children, and then ended up being like, you know what, I can now work until 3 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever it might be. So for them, you'd really send them to a community college, maybe, see if there's one locally that has this program. That's a really good place to start.
That's a good place to start. Yeah.
Okay.
But But I would be remiss if I didn't say I would actually recommend that they come right into Bright Horizons, because one of the things we do is offer the CDA at no cost to our
Mm,
employees. So if someone wants to start really entry level, and the state that they're in allows for that, and maybe a substitute or a associate teacher or a resource teacher really part-time, you can get your foot in the door, start getting that practice, because you have to be working to get those hours in CDA. Take the courses. We offer CUs along with our courses, so they absolutely transfer into a college degree if that's something someone chooses. And we always encourage that, but don't require that. So whether it's at Bright Horizons, of course, I think our program is stellar and we have really good results. But if it's not at Bright Horizons, yes, I absolutely, something that has coursework credentials or credits or CEUs attached to it. So it keeps the door open for a continued pathway.
mhm. I want to put in a plug for this too. One of the things that I've run into when I advise students who transfer from the community college is those who need loans to pay their way through. While they're trying to figure out what they want to do, sometimes they exceed the number of loans they can take out and they end up in some it becomes challenging. So if you start at Bright Horizons College Coach, they'll pay your way and you're not risking that happening. So that
Right.
seems to me like a great deal. If early childhood education is one of your options, why not start there?
Exactly. And early childhood, a lot of people find their way into early childhood. I hear a lot of people say, I want to make a difference in the world, or I want to work with
Mhm,
children. And those two things happen in early childhood.
mhm,
Many people are thinking, well, I'll do that through high school, or I'll do that through social work. And not, those are both good degree and career paths as well. But the amount of brain development and influence you have in a person's life trajectory is
mhm,
huge in early childhood. You want to make a difference in the world, help children in the first 5 years when their brain architecture is being built. And when people come into the field, and I put myself in here, and this is exactly what happened to me, is you say, oh, I want to make a difference in the world, I want to support children and families, this is the right place to do it. But if you're not sure about that and you want to test it out, it is great to have a job or role in the field and then find an organization. Of course, Bright Horizons, I'm talking about and representing Bright
mhm,
Horizons. Of course, we do that, and uniquely we do it in a way that is no cost to the student. So a lot of times we have programs that are tuition reimbursement, so employee has to pay up front and then we pay them back. For the early childhood field, we wanted to really remove barriers to people feeling like they could enter this field, and so we just pay for it. And that
mhm.
includes the AA and BA as well.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I remember
Yeah.
when our CEO made the announcement about it, and I just thought it was so great. Just
Mhm.
a life-changing opportunity for
So
people, I think.
life-changing. Yeah. I
Yeah.
was actually in the back. I knew he was gonna say that, and I was in the back. I was gonna speak after him. So I was just kind of multitasking, and I heard him say it, but I wasn't out there seeing the reaction. And I came out after there was a small break, and people were crying. They were calling their teachers. They were saying things like, "You don't have to take out a loan. You can stay in this field. Tell your parents you can do this." It's
Mm-hmm.
just is allows people to pursue their passion without the stress of having loans or a financial obligation that just is so burdensome. So
Mm-hmm.
it's such a wonderful career path. And it also allows people in that maybe don't feel that successful as a student, or maybe are an English language learner, and it gives them a lot of support. That's again why I recommend CDA to start, because it's a really supportive program that helps you get successful and feel confident. So then when you go on to the next step, you
Mm-hmm.
have all those skills and that confidence behind you, with the confidence that this is the field you want to be in.
Yeah, and I'm just going to reiterate again, you guys pay not just for the CDA, but the AA and the BA, or so the
100, yeah,
associates and the bachelors. So
all the way to bachelor's degree. Yeah, and not reimbursement. I mean, that's people, because people will say to me, "Oh yeah, I've heard of programs like that," and I'm, no, you haven't. This is a one of a kind program, because you never pay a bill, not even for a book.
right.
We just pay for it.
Yeah, I think that's very exciting.
Yep.
So what, I mean, I think we've kind of covered this, but is there specific experience? Like, let's kind of talk about a couple different scenarios. Like if a high school student I don't know what the minimum age would be for a high school student. What kind of experience would you recommend that they have any experience before they walk in your door, or is that not really necessary?
It depends, it depends on the first step you want. Of course, if you're going to want to be a lead teacher or leading curriculum and making decisions in the classroom, you absolutely need some experience. You can get experience working with children, babysitting, working maybe in a place of worship or faith. You've done some childcare or something, and coming with that passion and that experience is really important. But also just being a creative, flexible learner, and just because working in a group care setting in an early education and program is different than
Mm.
watching two children at home. And in fact, that we really want to make sure that early childhood professionals are not thought of as babysitters, because there is a sophistication to the work that they do,
Mhm.
and a curriculum to implement, and again, that brain development is so important. So having the passion, having a little experience, so you're going to be dealing with a lot of challenging behaviors. Children are figuring out who they are.
Mhm.
You get to be a part of it, but you also, sometimes it can be challenging. It's a intensive, very high passion, very high impact, and asks a lot of you. And so you just want to be ready for that and be ready to learn. And that if you're coming in at entry level, that's often the right things that you need, and then jump right into that CDA, and it builds your knowledge as you keep going, so you can have a long-term career.
Okay. And so they don't necessarily need, I mean, I imagine this could always be a good thing, but if their high school hasn't offered courses in early childhood education or even psychology, that's totally fine. Just try and pick up babysitting gigs, ideally, to expose yourself.
Yeah, again, I mean, it's state by state what's required. So it's important to look at the state regulations. The more experience you have, the better, the more likely you can
Mhm.
have a job, because there's a limited amount of positions that would require no experience. But if someone, again, has all those competencies and capacities and the willingness to learn, that is what's most important. We have some states where there's a couple of credits or college classes that are required, and we also support achievement of that. We have internship programs that we highly encourage people to get
Mhm.
involved with. And those internship programs include some on-the-job experience, but also ongoing professional development and training with our education and development department, and exposure to all of our benefits and all of that, and just learning all about what it's like to be a professional in early care and education. That's a really good way to start an internship program.
Mhm. So they could really walk in at any point. If they've already started college and they're a history major, I choose that because that was my major. They could then come in and, maybe start taking the appropriate classes, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there are opportunities for that in many of our states. Again,
Mhm.
it's hard to speak to every single state, because they're all different in terms of what are the entry level requirements. But very often there are some positions that allow for, when supervised, like an associate teacher or a sub or something like that, to get your foot in the door, or an internship program. And those are great places to start. If you're interested in going right into being a teacher, that does require more credits, more experience.
Mhm.
And you can get that sometimes through coming in as a sub or associate teacher and then getting your degree while you're doing that. Or sometimes you could get that through a school program that has a lab school or practicum experiences. It's always really just, the most important thing is to look at your state regulations. If you were asking me about Massachusetts, I'd have a different answer than I have about Illinois, than I do about California, than I do about any other state. So
Mhm.
that is pretty important in early childhood.
So can they just do a search like early childhood education
Mhm.
qualifications,
Yeah,
Massachusetts or
entry
Connecticut
level.
or
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
Entry level requirements in the state you're in. The licensing regulations will have those posted as well. And the local colleges will know, the local community colleges, or you can just call a Bright Horizons and ask
Right.
them. They will be happy to tell you, because
Right.
if you have, again, the willingness to learn and the passion for children, and you're building those competencies that allow you to be a professional educator, would so much like to help you join this field, because it's a lot of work.
Mhm.
It's a busy day, and it is so rewarding. It is, I mean, your job is to help children be joyful and playful
Hmm.
and so much laughter and fun and learning. You get to be silly. No one cares how well you sing. It's just, I mean, it is. I've been in this field for over 30 years for a reason. I've just started realizing this is my life's work. I've never said that before until the last couple months. I'm like, this is it. This is, I put my heart and soul in it, and I will continue to do that because it makes such a difference.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that was my next question. You answered it without my having to ask, which is that what are the benefits, beyond just the hugs? So
Yeah,
lots of benefits in terms of just, yeah, you are making a
so many
difference
benefits.
more than anybody else. So,
Yeah,
or at
yeah.
least as much as anyone else is. So,
Yeah, I mean, you're lots of hugs, free artwork. Nobody's judging what you look like every day.
yeah, you
And
can
in
wear
fact,
jeans to work, right?
you can
Like,
wear jeans, you can have a bad hair day. There's not anyone who cares. You are well loved by lots of people. In fact, when I was a toddler teacher, I don't know most of those children that I was a toddler teacher with, but I do know a couple of them, and that's a real gift. Besides making me feel pretty old, it's a real gift to see them as adults and know that I had something to do with their early years,
mhm,
especially now when my own education in child development and neuroscience has really advanced. I know what I was doing for those little toddlers that looked like play, that was a lot of
mhm,
fun, was so important for the rest
mhm,
of their lives. And I think early educators singularly have that experience of all educators, that they are at the start. They are at the very beginning of all of that being built, and everything else relies
mhm.
on that being strong.
Yeah. In my job, I feel like people always think college is the most important thing. And my theory is that actually it's the reverse. Early childhood education is most important, then elementary school, then middle school, then high school, then college. Because by college, it's not that college isn't important, but everything that leads up to it is what primes you for success once you get to college.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so I
Yeah.
totally agree.
You can
Yeah.
think of it just like a house, right? We're building the foundation. The house is built, elementary, high school, college is the windows, is the decor, is the paint, is all that stuff, the new refrigerator. But if it doesn't, none of that matters if the foundation isn't strong. It's not that you can't go back if the early childhood experience isn't very good or there was any kind of trauma there. You can work towards healing that and repairing that, but it's so much harder than getting it right from the start.
Exactly. All right. And one last, I heard this myth and it really bothered me. So I just want to address it. Are men welcome in early childhood education?
Absolutely. Men are very important in early childhood education. We have some outdated myths and fears about
Hmm.
that, but we welcome men in our field. We absolutely need them. Just like we welcome women in corporate world, we welcome men in education. It is so important for children to see examples of what they look like, what their family looks like, men as caregivers and social emotional role models, just like women as strong and can do anything. It's important for children to be exposed to that as they're figuring out who they are in the world and who they can be.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for talking with me.
Yeah. All right. So we'll be back in just a few minutes with my colleague Molly O'Connor. But yeah, thanks so much.